Today's episode features Mayor Patel, a former U.S. Army helicopter mechanic turned real estate pro, and proof that sometimes your career starts because your wife says, you should try this. From buying his first home with a VA loan for just about $1,000 out of pocket to navigating deals that take years to close, Mayor brings a completely different lens to real estate, blending residential and commercial with a sharp eye for opportunity most people would miss. In this conversation, we talk about seeing potential where others don't, playing the long game, and what it really takes to stay in the business when the payoff isn't always immediate. Let's get into it. I'm excited today that I have Mayor Patel with us, and welcome to the show, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Brenda. Looking forward to chat with you.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so Mayor and I have known each other for a few years, so I may actually know a few of his stories, but maybe not. So let's kind of jump right in. Tell me about your journey into real estate. And I know you didn't actually start with real estate here in DFW. So tell us a little bit about that journey and maybe some of the good things you learned along the way, maybe even some of the stumbling blocks along the way.
The journey I started real estate is because of my wife when we actually bought our first house in Colorado. And I was in the US Army serving as a helicopter mechanic, and we were looking for a first house. And then we found an agent who actually helped us to buy the house in Fountain, Colorado. And when we closed the house, my wife's like, this is a really fun process. And how cool that be for an agent to help a lot of people like this almost every week or every month? And then she's like, why don't you try to get the license? And that's how I actually
So
ended
she
up.
asked you to do it though
That
instead
is
of
correct.
herself, right?
That is
Okay,
correct.
I like
Yeah.
that.
I had no plan or interest to join the real estate. She actually pushed me for it and then got the license in Colorado and then did a few transactions. I finished my army career from Colorado, moved to Virginia, transferred my license to Virginia, practiced a few transactions there. Then we moved to Texas and then we met you. And then we started working with you ever since.
So I have to first say, and I think I've said this, I hope I've said this to you before, but thank you for your service. So I know that some of our viewers will be like, wow, that's awesome. Love to hear that. And thank you. I'm curious, were you able to use your veterans benefits? Like, did you get a VA loan?
Yes, and that was the second thing because we actually bought our first house with almost no down payment. The check I wrote for the purchasing a house was $1,000.
Oh my gosh.
At that time, we realized that there are so many soldiers or military service members who don't even know about this kind of benefits.
It's so true.
They attend seminars, but sometimes they forget about it. So I'm like, why don't we educate and help other people? And that's how we got started.
I love that because we do hear that a lot about how, and like you said, maybe it was in a seminar, maybe it was in some pamphlet that they were given at some
Yeah,
point along the way, and either forget or get so far down the road of purchasing that house that they kind of are reminded about it too late to make it happen for that purchase. But it's a huge benefit and a well deserved benefit that I would hope that every veteran who buys a house at least explores that as an
absolutely.
option because
Absolutely.
it is a big benefit.
We loved it. We loved it. Buying a house at that time was kind of simpler than buying a car.
Okay, so you got your license in Colorado, moved did you move to Virginia for the Army, or was that
No,
just a completely personal move? Okay.
completely personal move. Right after transition from army, that was my first job I got in Virginia.
And then to Texas, and
That's right.
we've known each other most of that time, which has been
Right.
great. So tell us a little bit about the process of being licensed, and you work a lot of commercial. So what's been the process of kind of getting up to speed and learning how to handle both residential and commercial clients? And then have there been any aha moments or any things that you're like, whoa, wait a second, I might need to rethink this. What are your stories?
Yeah. Especially residentials are pretty much very normal transactions. We find few things which we, as a realtor, advise clients to take actions about those, right? But commercial has been total blast and fun with me because in commercial, we think multiple scenarios. We also help out our client and customers to figure out their cash flows, their lease payments for 30 years, 10 years, 20 years versus buying. And then in commercial, when we are buying it, we have so many use cases. So when you work as an agent, of course, you are working as a realtor, but sometimes we have to show them different perspective of what they can do for the real estate. For example, one of my client, I helped him buy a small shutdown in air conditioner supplier's warehouse in Temple, Texas. If you see that real estate, you would not buy that real estate. It was on a 1 acre land, plus it had 1 more acre free attached to it, and then it was kind of a completely abandoned warehouse, but the zoning calls it commercial.
Okay.
So, and it was on a traffic road, so we helped him acquire that real estate for less than $300,000 and then do renovations, and now it's $1 million property with all the renovations and business running and upgoing. And we have done several of these transactions where we have helped clients buying something which has kind of no use case, but then you have them realize that you can do this, you can do this, and all of a sudden, when they do small expenditures of renovations, it turns into $1 million real estate.
That's awesome. So you have to really think future
Mm,
value and help
That's
them to
right.
see the picture. And I think that's something we learn in real estate too, is that not everyone has a vision for what it could be.
Right.
Sometimes
Right.
we have to paint that picture for them.
Yep. 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 We need to help them. We need to help them. We need to help them with zoning, parking requirement, traffic, and all the resources are open, and you just have to dig for them. You got to go
Okay.
to city websites, state websites, and if you do some research, you can get all this information.
Yeah, and then guide them to where they
Yep.
need to do their
Exactly.
own research too. So just kind of help them along the process. We've done it more times than they have, and so it's a little easier for us to guide them along the way. So what has been your most fun piece that you've done so far?
The most fun piece I'm doing right now for a client of
Okay.
mine who actually wants to open a bakery in Salina.
Okay.
You know, initially we started looking for real estate about a year ago, and then we couldn't find a right piece of real estate. And then she had her vision of doing a only boutique bakery shop. She doesn't want to open some commercial setup or like a, you know how they have this cutter bakery in complexes and retail shops. She wanted boutique
Mm.
old building where
Okay.
she can put some effort into it and make it like an old boutique bakery. So we are
Okay.
doing that transaction right
So
now.
the building brings some style to it.
Exactly.
Okay.
It brings some style, character,
Mhm.
and uniqueness of being in Salina,
Mhm.
downtown area. So we are
Mhm.
doing that transaction right now. We found a land with the real estate, and we went under contract. That real estate was in the market for quite a long time. No utilities, nothing. Nobody would buy it in this market, but we actually got it a good price and everything.
Good. That's exciting.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love what Salina has done from a growth standpoint over the last few
absolutely.
years and trying to maintain that charm and that character that comes from the old downtown area, which for our viewers who don't know where Salina is,
Yep,
it's quite a ways up north from Dallas, but it's
yep.
one of the suburbs straight north of Dallas.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the fun part about it, sometimes clients don't know how and what they want to do. So we have to show them the vision because we hired architect in-house and we saw some drawings, conceptual drawings of, hey, how this building will look like after you do this kind of renovations, how
Mhm.
this it will look like after these renovations of the landscaping. So we really have to show a vision or a potential of the real estate or a business to a client. And what we do in our shop is that we actually have in-house artists in the US and outside US who can actually really come up with the new drawings of a real estate or business or some kind of an industrial warehouse. And when we show them a multiple options to a client, then they realize the true potential of what this real estate can be. That's is truly remarking journey. We enjoy it.
You mentioned that, and I know you work both the residential and the commercial side. And yet, when you're talking about that piece, I hear such similarity to the residential side because when we show properties on the residential side, when they start
Mhm.
seeing the vision of them living there with their family and their household and making that their home, you're doing the same thing for their commercial vision and hopes and dreams.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think even in real estate, if you are showing a property to a client or if you're listing a property to for a client, staging them either really or virtually makes a huge difference when you list a property
Hmm.
because that gives a potential buyer a potential, hey, how my property gonna look like, how my home gonna look like. So always a good idea to show a potential of the property.
That's great. So, has there been a story that has made you pause and think, I don't know, do I really want to do this?
Yes and no. I think yes, it has. because what happens in commercial transaction is commercial. So in residential transaction, our closing times are short.
Mm-hmm.
You go under contract for a house and you get paid in 30 days or 45 days. In
Mm-hmm.
commercial goes for 2 years or maybe more than a year. Sometimes it goes for 3 years. So even if your client goes under contract in 2026, we may not get paid in 2028 or 9. So that is a lot of weight game happens sometimes, especially for all this new construction happening around DFW, right? I have been working with a client who actually went under contract to open a restaurant in Salina in 2024,
Okay.
but that complex has not even broke the ground yet, right? So that is a challenging part as an agent because you need to constantly plan your finances,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think upon last year, mid last year, I had a thought about, do I really want to continue? Because I did not have much residential transactions going on, and mostly I was doing commercial, and all the commercial I have done so far in last 8 months were all future paid out. So there was no potential cash flow in 2025, and we rethought like, hey, what should we do? And then that's why having a balance of a different kind of real estate gives you income.
It does.
Yep.
Yes. I don't so often we'll have newer agents come and ask about commercial. And that's the one thing I always point out to them is you get paid much slower. And even though that transaction may take, I think the one you just mentioned was about 3 years for closing, that doesn't mean that you put them under contract and you don't talk to them again until three
Yes.
years later. You are still in regular communication with them. And sometimes it's things like you mentioned where the other construction around does not move forward or changes,
Uh-huh.
and it might completely cause a problem or even cancellation in the contract that you've worked really hard for.
Exactly, exactly. Because client wants to have their building ready, and they keep calling you every few months. Hey, what's going on with my project? And then
Mhm.
you call the landlords, and then they give you the same answer. There is no update, right? And most of these commercial landlords are big corporations, so you have
Yes.
to really have contacts and right contact for asking the right questions.
It's not as easy as just calling the main number on the website.
No, it's not. It's not.
So, as you were getting your license and especially kind of thinking about commercial real estate for our newer licensees who are thinking about, what their process should be, what kind of advice would you give them? What do you know now that you wish you had known several years ago?
Real
Hmm.
estate is a great industry to get it, and right now a lot of people are quitting. I think this gives a tremendous opportunity for new agents to actually start learning, and don't focus on commission and compensation. Focus on client and focus on the transactions. The more diversified transactions we get, the more experience we earn. It helps us in a long run.
It does. And then you have the benefit of being able to tell a client that you can help them with either
Abs-
side. So, you want to
Absolutely.
move your home? Let me know. You want to move your business? Let me know. And I think that's a huge advantage for your clients too.
Yep, yep, yep. It truly is, and it's fun. It's fun doing that.
I bet, and getting to be a part of them. So, what about after the closing? What do you do to take care of or remind those clients that you are still there for them for their other transactions?
I don't have yet to set up my CRM or some kind of reminders. But what I pretty much do is whenever there is holidays or festivities around the calendar, I always text them. For example, New Year's, Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays, Memorial Day, Labor Day,
Hmm.
all these holidays, I text them. Sometimes I call them. Most of my clients reach out to me when the tax in comes, property tax seasons.
Hmm.
So we
Yes.
we provide them a comms around the area so they can actually protest with the county and all that stuff.
That personal one to one connection, though, the texting them about different holidays or events happening
Mhm.
in their area, that's the kind of stuff that they really know you are bringing them value and thinking about them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's no way for them to question whether or not you're still there for them. They know you are.
Absolutely. Yes.
I like that. That's great advice. So, one of the things that I always like to ask our guests is about the one thing that you must always show up for. So, from a business standpoint, what's the one thing that you either need to show up for or that needs to show up for you?
The most basic thing which I always recommend agents is doesn't matter whether you do residential or commercial, log into MLS almost every day and see what new properties are coming on the market and what is going into contract and what is being sold. If it is being sold, check the prices, see what was it listed for and what it sold for, right? Similarly, if it is something is coming in the market, just see what's the trend, start to analyze the trend, and that being in a MLS, LoopNet, or Craxy. I used to spend about 2 to 3 hours every single day on MLS and Craxy and LoopNet every single day.
Love that answer. And I can tell you, after all this time, I've never heard anyone give that answer. So I love that. It's unique. It means you're paying attention to what is happening in the market. And gosh, you have the best answer for someone you come across then who says, "So, how's the market?" Because we hear that all the time, right? You
Uh-huh.
go to any networking event, and that's the first question you get is, "So, how's the
Yeah.
market?" You know the actual facts and figures to tell them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, especially if you go to church, if you go to social events, everybody gonna ask you.
Yes.
People ask me even this weekend that, hey, what's the market look like? And you need to know what is happening in the market.
That's great. Like I said, I have not heard anyone say that, and I love that answer. So great, great, great tip for our listeners there. What kind of advice would you give for a new agent outside of those things?
Work extra hard or go extra mile to help client. It's always how you can make clients' life easier, when they're purchasing or selling.
Mhm.
And that helps you a lot to earn the referrals.
And I know that you mentioned there was a time that you thought, okay, my business is kind of future forward. What am I doing today? What transformation or what change did you need to make at that time to keep on going?
Even though my focus was mainly commercial, I tried to get the leads for residential. And then I tried to push out some content on the social media to create referral leads.
Mhm.
And with that, I was able to create some referral leads for Hawaii, some other states where I just need to refer my agent, our
Mhm.
office agent, and earn money.
Okay. So really diversify then
Absolutely.
and focus on a little bit more than just one sliver of business. Okay. Is there anything else you would want to leave our viewers with as we kind of wind down? Any
Uh,
inspiration?
Sure. A lot of residential agent think that the commercial is hard, good paying work. It's not like that. I think residential market and profession is as rewarding as the commercial.
Mhm.
All you have to do is you have to do more transactions. And because residentials are shorter and simple transactions, anybody can achieve more transactions.
Mhm.
If I would have learned that early in the game, maybe I would have been more successful in residential market.
That's interesting because I see you as very successful in the commercial market, in my opinion. No, but I do like that because agents a lot of times will have a decision to make. Do they go residential or commercial? It's not an option that is available to everyone to do both. And so I like having your perspective on being able to do both and actually making a career and a business out of doing both sides. And so I think that's great advice. And true. So many people love the idea of a check that comes 2 or 3 years later with that commercial deal, but you have to make a living in between too.
That's
You
right.
have to be able to pay the bills in between. I appreciate your time today. This has been a lot of fun, and hopefully we can do this again sometime too.
Awesome. Well, it was nice talking to you, Brenda. Thank you again for having me.
This episode has been sponsored by Home Smart Stars. Agents, do you feel unseen, unheard? Maybe wish you had better commission? Maybe wish that you were welcomed and encouraged to just show up as you are and be your true, authentic self and have all the training and support and tools to help you thrive in your real estate career? If so, then you need to reach out to Home Smart Stars and make Home Smart Stars your home for real estate.